Hi there, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls. We have a tremendous wrestling card for you today here on All-Star Championship Wrestling, which, of course, features the world's greatest wrestlers.
My little itty-bitty bruiser buddies.
United States heavyweight champion from Brazil. The world's heavyweight champion from the AWA, Nick Bockwinkel.
The Midwest supporting, bruiser loving, positivity spreading, world's most dangerous podcast. Join former pro wrestler and promoter Dave Dynasty as he supports and promotes Midwest pro wrestling. Keep on growing with the Midwest Express. This is the Dave Dynasty Show.
I like to hurt people. I like to hurt people. Yes, he does. He likes to hurt people and make them run home to mama. Run home.
Greetings and welcome to the Dave Dynasty Show. I am your host, Dave Dynasty, and I have to begin by apologizing for being a couple days late with this episode. Lots of kind of some new things brewing in my life and whatever else. I'm just trying to get my schedule worked out and get in my groove and kind of find out what my new norm is, and it threw everything off. So, and while I'm in the business of apologizing, I will also apologize the fact that we have not had on this day our daily history clips have not been out, and we're just going to take the week off from this at this stage of the game. We're a couple days in. It'll return next week as I figure out my new routines. But don't fret, it will be back. It's not going anywhere. Absolutely not. So anyway, apologies are out of the way. Thank you for joining us. We have a very, very special episode. But before we do that, let's get into a few things. Real quick, I always mention this, but check out PowerSlam.tv. They've got a lot of cool independent wrestling on there. There's over 100 promotions, over 4,000 hours of content. Best thing is if you sign up, you enter the code Dynasty, you get 1 month for free. So go give it a try. You have nothing to lose for 1 month. And I guarantee you'll be hooked. You'll enjoy it. And you'll want to subscribe, so go check them out. Real quick, some places you can see me in a couple of weeks. Got 2 events coming up. May 11th, I'll be in Portland, Indiana for DCCW as they present Invasion. A great show headlined by Rikishi and also featuring lots of other great talent. Sean Casey, Bobo Brazil Jr., Dick the Bruiser Jr., Madman Fulton. It's going to be a great, great show. So if you're in the Portland, Indiana area, check that out. You can go to Facebook or Twitter and look them up at DCCW Indiana. June 8th and 9th, that weekend, I'll be in Milwaukee for Crusher Fest, where they unveil the statue for the Crusher there in Milwaukee. It's going to be absolutely awesome, spectacular. I'm so excited. And if you would like to attend or would like more information, go to crusherfest.com, and you can find out all the details there. If you're going to be there, let me know. Maybe we can say hi to each other. All right, we have today our special I Like to Hurt People episode of the Dave Dynasty Show. And when I planned to do this show, there was one guy I thought we had to get on to kind of help co-host and kick this thing off. It's a guy I kind of call a super fan of the movie, if you will, and it's Joey Broussard. Joey, how are you doing?
Doing great, Dave. How are you?
I'm very good. And obviously, we've talked about this movie online and stuff, and you're all the time posting things about it. And what is it about this movie? When did you become, I'm going to say obsessed almost, when did this movie first hook you, or when did you first see it and get your eyes open to it?
It would have been summer of 1985, which is right about the time that it was released on video. Every summer, I would spend a couple of weeks in South Louisiana with my grandparents, and then we'd spend a couple of days with this aunt and uncle, and a couple of days with that one. And one of them had a VCR. We didn't have a VCR yet, so we went to the store, we rented some movies, and my aunt knew that I loved pro wrestling, even though I was probably 7 or 8 years old. And we rented the Andre the Giant WWF tape, and we rented this other one called I Like to Hurt People, because I think that's the only two they had, so she rented them both for me.
Yeah.
Well, the Andre one was pretty much typical fare, and it was forgettable, but I Like to Hurt People stuck with me, because I was 7 or 8 years old, and I had never seen anything like that, and my mind was blown.
Yeah, so when did you really kind of dive in? Because I know, let's talk, before we get that, let's talk about your collection. You've got, there's not a whole lot of stuff out there, obviously, a lot of memorabilia or what have you, collectibles. but what there is out there, you pretty much have it all for the most part. So what kind of things do you have in your collection related to this movie?
Well, the movie itself, I have on every original format it was released on. I have it on VHS. I have it the second release VHS as well that came out in 91. I've got it on Betamax, and I've got 2 copies on Laserdisc, one of which I have autographed by 5 or 6 people that were in the movie.
Okay.
Including the original sheet. So, besides that, I've got the movie poster. I've got the promo trailer video that was sent to video stores. I've got the record single for I Like to Hurt People with the original music by Bob Finnegan. I've got a couple of still photographs that were shot during matches that were included in the movie. I've got the Variety trade newspaper ad for it. I've got the ringside work print that was given to me by somebody that was in the movie who asked to remain anonymous 17 years ago or 18 years ago.
Okay.
No, actually, it was closer to 20 years ago. And I've got that, which I put on YouTube. And I'm sure there's more stuff, but that's just right off the top of my head.
Yeah. Yeah, and now I know you also have an affinity for the Sheik. Did that spawn from this movie, or did it go hand in hand with it? Or
it 100% spawned from this movie. Growing up in Louisiana, I was in Mid-South, Bill Watts territory. Never had heard of the Sheik until I saw I Like to Hurt People, and that was one of the things besides getting 2 different territories in my area at the same time, then seeing something that was even, further out, because they mentioned Detroit and Cobo Hall a million times in the movie. Sure. It made me understand how the territory days worked when I was a little kid, because that was definitely the dying days of the territory.
Yeah, right.
Definitely that's 100% where I heard of the Sheik.
Yeah. And so, all right, you have all this stuff. You love this movie. If you had to put just a spitball guess on how many times you've watched this movie in your life, what kind of range are we talking about here?
In all honesty, not thousands, but definitely triple digits. At least, more than 100, less than 1,000.
And do you find it, just as entertaining every time you watch it? Are you still as captivated by it?
Well, that's just it. There's a lot of movies that I have that really, and it's obviously, personal favorites. That if I'm bored and I just want something on the TV, I'll put it on, and before I know it, I'll catch myself sitting down watching it instead of just having it on as background noise. So I'm guilty of that, but still, I've shown friends that have never seen it, people that don't, friends that are wrestling fans that don't really know about the older style and the territory days and how things worked. I've shown it to them. I show it to anybody that, that wants to see it. If they're the least bit interested, I said, let me put it on, see what you think. If you don't like it, I'll turn it off.
Yeah. Well, and later in the show, we got an interview that I did with one of the producers, Bryan Greenberg. And when I talked to him, we talked about how obviously this movie evolved so much from the initial plans for what they had in mind to where it wound up. And Bryan, like he said, he wasn't even aware when it got released on video till after the fact. But I told him, even despite all that change in the story, just looking at this movie, historically speaking, for the footage and the slice of the wrestling of that time, and especially the way he shot it, because it's not like your standard TV show. He was doing cameras in ring and the camera around on the track around the ring, all this different stuff. Do you see that as well? How even it's like it puts you in that place and time because it's like territory wrestling but shot in a movie style, so it's kind of captivating that way.
Oh. Well, without a doubt, and I think that just goes to show you that that it was shot as a movie. It had a cinematographer and a director of photography, and it had production, and they shot it as a movie. But the thing is it gives you such a snapshot into an era that is long gone, and there's not a whole lot that you can really see. So not only does it show you how it was in Detroit back in the late 70s, but it also shows it in a different way that you're not going to see anywhere else. So.
Yeah.
That definitely, it's definitely a different style.
Yeah, I've talked to Bryan numerous times online, and he's got some other things he's working on that comes up in the interview. But one thing he and I discussed is they actually, when they were shooting this movie, they actually went to Indianapolis and shot the Bruiser and Sheik cage match at Market Square Arena. And I was begging him, and I was so hopeful that he had that complete match, and he didn't. And I was so disappointed because I would love to see that complete match. But so we talked about when we talked with Bryan, this thing kind of began as a horror. It tended to be a horror movie. and then kind of shifted.
Right, ringside in hell.
Yeah, and then it shifted where they thought, well, there were some consistency problems. They thought they found out, and it was hard to shoot. They thought they switched more to the documentary, which is more kind of what Ringside was, right? That cuts more documentary style as opposed to the movie with the Stop the Sheik thing that came out later. As I like to hurt people. Which version do you prefer? Do you like the Ringside version? Do you like the later with the Stop the Sheik stuff? Are you kind of split on it? I mean, do you not have a preference? Where do you stand on all that?
Well, the Ringside version that I have, it actually includes the Stop the Sheik stuff.
Okay.
From what I understand, a lot of that stuff was shot after the fact, but not by New World Video, who released it on video in 1985.
Gotcha.
It was shot, a little bit later, and then that made it into the work print that I got my hands on about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And but in all honesty, I like the Ringside version better, just because it has more footage in it. There's actually it's probably about 12 to 15 minutes longer, I think, than what we actually got with the video release in '85. There's footage of Baba and
right.
Baba and Tenryu, I believe, against the Funks.
Yeah.
There's a couple of other scenes that were just completely cut out of the movie for the video release. So I prefer that one just due to the extra footage.
Yeah.
And the soundtrack is completely different as well.
Yeah, right. The soundtrack's great. The title song there. Every time I see the movie or any snippet of the movie, it gets stuck in my head. It's such a catchy song, and it's such a 70s type song. Or late 70s.
Which one? The newer one? From 85?
Yeah.
Yeah. A friend of mine, one of my best friends that I showed it to probably 10 years ago, every once in a while, I'll hear him just walking around and he's just like, I like to hurt people. Yeah. He says it you can hear the snarl in his voice.
Yeah, it is so great. It is. The movie's great to me. I mean, I'm a Midwest guy, so I love seeing these guys. I love seeing, the Dusty and Andre and the Funks when they came through Detroit. And I love how there's the Battle Royal scene, and you see so many different guys coming out to the ring. It is so great to see them. And like like you said, the footage is just the way it's shot for a movie. It's pristine, and it's great. And we talk to Bryan later, and he's got some projects he's working on, some behind the scenes stuff. He's always uncovering, new still shot stuff. When you see this stuff pop up and, and he posts a picture or he's posts something or you hear this stuff, how excited does it get you as this mega fan of the movie to know that there's potentially something that maybe you haven't seen, or maybe you have, but that possibility that there's something out there, a little, even if it's just a little snippet?
Well, when he released a video for his GoFundMe or Kickstarter or whatever it was to try to get some funding for, basically a sequel, which I believe he was going to use more footage and do some behind the scenes, more of a documentary about the movie.
Sure.
I was pumped. I was super excited, but then I was very upset when I saw that very few people contributed to it.
Yeah.
Because obviously, being such a huge fan of the movie, I want to see more.
Yeah.
But he did release a video on the page, on the crowdfunding page, that had some behind-the-scenes footage that was really, really cool. And I was like, I want every second of that. I want to see all of that.
Yeah.
But, who knows when we're going to see that, if we're going to see that, one day, hopefully, we'll be lucky enough.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, as a little spoiler, we talk a little about it in the interview coming up, and there is still hope. There is still, it might not be fast movement, but there is still some forward movement on this project, and he's still very devoted to it. And he's fascinated. And I'm going to ask you kind of the same thing I asked him. It's what do you think? It's like this movie's, from its initial concept, is almost 40 years old now, and who would have thought that here we are talking about this, probably more so than it ever was before, even in the home video release and everything else. And I think it kind of goes hand in hand with, we're in this wrestling historian kind of golden age now, and these researchers and books and all these things coming out. And you've been a fan of it for so long. How cool is it for you that it seems to be even getting more and more attention all the time than it ever has before?
Well, obviously, as a fan, I'm thrilled about it. I definitely think it shares with a lot of other movies, not just wrestling in general, but with a lot of movies. It's a cult classic. It's a cult film that has its own following of fans.
Yep.
And obviously, and those types of things is that's something that those types of fans share with other fans and say, hey, you've seen this? Well, here, let me show you this.
Yep.
And it gets, it steamrolls into, until you have people that were clearly not even born when the movie came out that want to know more about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I said, I've watched it with a few people who aren't necessarily wrestling fans as well, and they're almost humored by it. They always get a chuckle out of the whole Stop the Sheik movement and some of those scenes with him and doing that, and I think it's just a catchy film to me. It's even despite the wrestling content. I like how they've kind of interwoven this story, tried to make it into a story. And I think it works.
Right.
And with the stuff, because, where they parlayed it into these guys coming into Detroit trying to stop the Sheik and him getting by and I think they've done a really good job. And I think, like I said, it's kind of a slice of history, not only, wrestling wise, but I think just a slice of Detroit at that time. So tell us, you're always looking, obviously, I'm sure your eyes are always open if there's ever anything else out there. If someone out there had something by chance, maybe there's nothing else in existence, but if they had something, wanted to get in touch with you, see if you're interested, how can they get a hold of you or even just to pick your brain on the movie? Is there a way they can contact you and discuss the film with you?
Well, I'm not a tweeter. I'm not a Twitter. My main social media outlet is Facebook.
Okay.
So, I'm sure you'll have my name spelled on the, somewhere on the podcast page. And yeah, that's the best way to reach out to me. I'm on most of the classic Michigan, wrestling forums on Facebook. I'm on the I Like to Hurt People page. I'm on the Dave Dynasty Show page.
That's right.
So yeah, I can be found. I can be found pretty easily as long as you know my name.
Yep, sure. So yeah, it'll be right there in the title. Anybody looking, and if you have any trouble, you can always reach out to me and I'll make the connection there for you. So if anybody out there wants to talk the movie, I'm sure Joey's always open. And if by chance you have anything that might interest him, get in touch with him. And like I said, I don't loosely use the term obsessive, but I think you might be borderline obsessive with the film. I wasn't even aware that there was, this trailer that went out to video stores to play. So how did you unearth that? Is it just something you crops up on eBay or something else or?
Exactly. I have a saved search on eBay for I Like to Hurt People. So that's where I've found a couple of things. That's where I found the Variety ad, which they apparently have several of them. I guess they're just ripping these things out of varieties from the mid-'80s and trying to sell them on eBay. But as soon as I saw that one, I bought it. Same thing with the promo video. I know there's a couple of pins out there, like little buttons, like pin back buttons.
Yeah.
That are out there, and I don't have one of those. I was talking to I don't know if you know Professor Ouch.
Dude, he sent me one, so I don't know. I actually have one. Yeah.
You have something I don't. Look at that.
Yeah.
You got one up on me.
Yeah, it's actually right here on the wall. I'm looking. It's just the movie logo. Yeah, that he actually sent me one of those.
Yeah.
When I saw he had that posted, it's pretty cool. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So I mean, there's just the save search on eBay has helped me out a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool. It's always cool when you look at the stuff and stuff turns up. Stuff all the time turns up. You never had any idea it even existed. And it's just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff, especially in wrestling and in merchandising. You sometimes get some pretty wild and weird things. So, well, Joey, thanks for coming on and talking. Like I said, when I planned to, I've been trying to get Bryan. We've been going back and forth trying to schedule for a while, but I knew when I did this that I wanted to have you on the show and talk as kind of an introduction leading into it, because I knew your passion for the film, and it's always cool to hear, the fan side. And I'm sure Bryan, I mentioned it to him, and he's very excited to hear. He was pretty excited that there was a fan that, like I said, I described as obsessed with the film. So he was pretty excited about that too. So thanks for coming on and giving us some time and talking about the movie with us.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. So, I don't get to talk about it with too many people, so it's good to have a nice opportunity to talk to somebody that actually knows about it.
That's right, absolutely. So that's it. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will have that interview with one of the producers of I Like to Hurt People, Bryan Greenberg. So stick around. Hey, make sure you visit DaveDynasty.com. That is your central hub for everything within the world of the Dave Dynasty Show. From there, you can find links to follow us on all of our social media accounts. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course YouTube, which you will want to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have lots of classic wrestling, every episode of the podcast, and other exclusive features there. While you're at DaveDynasty.com, check out the links to help financially support the show. That is how we keep this free every week. You can go to ProWrestlingTees.com/The Dave Dynasty and buy a shirt to help us out. PayPal.me/The Dave Dynasty to make a one-time financial contribution. Patreon.com/The Dave Dynasty to make ongoing monthly contributions. or you can click our affiliate links for Amazon.com and HighSpots.com. No additional charge to you, but it helps us out. Thank you for your support, and check out DaveDynasty.com to complete your experience with the Dave Dynasty Show. All right, we're back on the Dave Dynasty Show, and we have a very special guest today. We have Bryan Greenberg, the associate producer and director of photography for the infamous cult movie, I Like to Hurt People. Bryan, how are you?
Great. Well, we have a chance to talk today.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to this. We've been trying to get this scheduled for a while, but I absolutely love the movie I Like to Hurt People. It was one of those movies when it actually came out in the 80s, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. It was a constant rental for me at my local video store. But let's talk about, because there's a long process from where it began and from there. So tell us about how this idea originally began, and it was a lot different than what actually ended up coming out, wasn't it?
Yeah, totally different. It really went through a metamorphosis as we were putting it together. We started out as let's do this horror film, and we'll have wrestlers in it and blah blah blah, and hey, this sounds like a good idea. And we went, and someone we knew Bob Finnegan, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but the next thing I know, we were meeting with him and pitching him the idea of doing a wrestling horror film. Sure. And that all sounded good. He, he presented it to the Sheik, and the next thing we knew, we were sitting down and talking about it with him, and amazingly enough, we all clicked. It all felt really good. Sheik kind of took a liking to us, and he invited us to his to a party, to his New Year's party. So I don't know if you're not familiar with Michigan, but the Sheik lives in Lansing, which is the state capital, about an hour outside of Detroit.
Right.
So suddenly I'm finding myself in the Sheik's house, which is more like the Sheik Castle, celebrating New Year's with a bunch of wrestlers and people from state government, because that's like where the capital is.
Yeah.
It was really fun and a little surreal. I wish we would have been able to film some of it, but we did make an audio tape.
Oh, really?
Which I'll probably should probably listen to, and I'll probably use it in a project that I'll talk about a little later.
Okay.
But that really started the ball rolling, and just to jump ahead, we started down that road, and we realized that the wrestlers they have their own schedule and they're doing their own things, and we're never going to be able to keep continuity. That they're showing up different hairstyles, and they just we weren't going to be able to get a commitment as you would if you were paying an actor.
Right.
So as we started looking at our footage and putting it together, we thought, well, I think we've got a horror film, but there may be something a little more here. We always looking for investors. We ended up going out to Los Angeles and talking to some people out here. And I can't think of the producer's name. They became very well known, but they produced Flush Gordon,
right?
Was a spoof on Flash Gordon.
Yeah,
and they were just up and coming. They saw our film. They liked it. They were about ready. We almost had them, but they came out. They looked at our footage and said, guys, you got a great documentary here. You ought to start thinking about maybe that would be a better way to sell it. And when we heard that, it just, we were thinking about that all along, and which we needed that little push. And at that point, we decided, let's turn this into a documentary.
Right.
And that's what it was for quite a while. The original rough cut that I did was pretty much a documentary. And it says associate producer. It really was a small crew. It was myself, Don Jackson, Bob Finnegan. We were all producers on the project.
Sure. Yeah.
Dennis Skotak was our other partner in crime there. And I was the editor on the film along with Dennis. We carried the torch with that film right to the end. But what happened is after we finished it, we couldn't get the funds to complete it, so it just languished for a little while. And in that time, I was pursuing my own career as a cameraman, and Don was pursuing his career as a director. We both moved out to Los Angeles. Make a long story short, I moved up to Carmel and worked with Michael Nesmith from the Monkees on a TV show called Pop Clips. And we did a number of projects together. That's, again, an interesting story for another day. But Don ended up moving out here with some other friends of ours, living with Dennis, and was working over at New World, got their attention, convinced them to put money into the film, to go back to Detroit and shoot this whole, Stop the Sheik that you see running through the movie. That was all put in later.
Yeah.
That was his way to get New World at the time to invest in the movie. And one of the reasons they did it is they were coming out with a Laserdisc division, and they wanted product.
Sure.
So it was a perfect storm. Worked out well. He went back to Detroit, shot all that footage, and cut a deal and got the film out. And it never really played in any theaters. It was just out on VHS and Laserdisc. And I didn't even know about it until he had cut the deal.
Yeah.
I had moved down to Los Angeles and was carving out my own career as director of photography, and really wasn't paying that much attention to the movie at that time. Yeah. But that, after New World had it, they just didn't know. It just kind of disappeared, and then people started bootlegging it like crazy.
Right.
But the DVD that I sell is the actual movie. It's the way it was kind of designed to be released. There's on YouTube, there's a version that's up there that was actually put together by Finnegan and Don when they were trying to sell it in the early 80s, and they shot more wrestling footage. I don't know. They had some crazy idea. I have no idea what they're thinking since they both passed, but somehow they cut this together. It didn't go anywhere, but it got up on YouTube.
Yeah, that's one. That's called Ringside, right? Is that the one that's they labeled it as Ringside? So. Yeah, I think they gave it that title or something.
Yeah, it must be, because originally our film was called Ringside in Hell.
Yeah.
So, what you see there is just a mishmash of stuff. Yeah. Really doesn't relate to what the film was about.
Yeah. Now, you said...
Which is unfortunate. I wish I could pull it down, but,
sure. Right.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah. Now, you said
so
you met the Sheik when this all started. How was he... Because he's very protective. Always was very protective of his character. So how was he with you guys coming in and entering into the business and seeing this? I mean, did he lay down some ground rules for you guys on what you could and could not shoot and use? And
yeah, that's a good question. So before I did the wrestling movie, I'd worked on another movie about a year before that really started my career off. I was an assistant cameraman on a biker film, and we used a real bike club. Oh, so I hung out with a group in Detroit called the Scorpions for about a year, where we made this low-budget movie that eventually was released under the name Northville Cemetery Massacre. It's kind of a cult classic. If you can track it down, it's kind of worth seeing. It's pretty out there. Anyways, after having that experience, when I thought about working with wrestlers, and again, I was a wrestling fan, I knew nothing about the inside,
right.
inside the ring there. So I was actually pretty apprehensive. I'm thinking, God, am I going to spend another year with people as crazy as bikers? What is this going to be like? So we go to meet the Sheik, and of course I've never seen the Sheik other than being the Sheik.
Yeah, right.
And we're at this meeting, and it turned out the Sheik, super nice guy.
Yeah.
Very funny, great sense of humor. And in our discussion, he realized that we were going to respect what wrestling was. We were not going to reveal any secrets, and we were there to really protect what they were doing, but still have the opportunity to show it off and show a little bit of what went on behind the curtain there.
Sure.
So, so in the movie, you see the Sheik being the Sheik.
Yeah.
But in actuality, we had a lot of interaction with the Sheik. I have fond memories of going over to his house one day, or over to the mansion in Williamson. Mm-hmm. We're knocking on the door, waiting for the Sheik, for someone to answer. And we look up in the yard, and there's a Sheik in like a bulldozer, because he lives on all these acres,
right?
Of land, and he was just working on his land. Next thing you know, he's like chasing us. We're just cracking up. Like the Sheik's chasing us in a bulldozer. Yeah, it was great. So anyway, we would spend time at their house with his wife and family and Ed and that. And what was very Midwestern is they were just like after you got to know them, they're like, we'd end up in the kitchen, eating hot dogs. It was very, once they trusted us and once they realized, we were there to, they respected us, we respected them. We were there to do a job and make the movie and have fun while we were doing it. So, So he, he knew there were things he was not going to show us. Everything we did, we went through Finnegan, who was the lead there. And if they didn't want us to see something, we wouldn't see it. So it was all good. We never really pressed them. We knew that they were probably there was a lot of shenanigans going on before the live match and who was going to do what and whatever. That wasn't going to be part of the movie. We didn't want to know about that.
Yeah, right.
We just it was really what was about going on in the ring and really all these great wrestlers with all these personalities.
Oh, sure.
Every wrestler had a great personality, had a very outgoing. Most of them were very funny, and it was just great to we always enjoyed hanging out with them. What you don't see in the movie, and you see a little bit about this in the film that's up on YouTube. We actually shot a sequence at a topless bar with all the wrestlers. Never made it into the movie, but I have a lot of that footage. And like I said, I think in the last year, the Detroit Free Press invited me to come in and show the movie for the Free Press Film Festival, which I did. It was the first time I'd seen I Like to Hurt People on a big screen with an audience. And it was spectacular. It was amazing. They laughed at all the right parts. People enjoyed the hell out of it. And it was just so much fun to see it blown up and see all those images really big on the screen.
Yeah.
And it was just really an enjoyable evening. So I started really thinking about more of the movie. I'm like, hey, I should really go back and examine what I have, and maybe I could do a lot more with this. And in the meantime, a friend of mine said, look, I have a scanner that can scan Super 8 millimeter, and I'm happy to scan all your film. I said, well, that's great. Because one of the things that Don and I always did is we always carried Super 8 cameras around. Either he had one or I had one, and we would film behind the scenes what was going on. So I went and started reviewing all the Super 8. I mean, I had a ton of it.
Yeah.
And in the Super 8 footage, I'm finding stuff that is just gold that I realized, like, I can do a little sequel here, like kind of a making of I Like to Hurt People.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do that. I'm going to start on that. I'm waiting to get the footage back. In that footage, I've got the Sheik showing up in his street clothes, hanging out with the Snake and all of us in the back, before a match. Stuff people never seen these wrestlers do.
Yeah, right.
Just a lot of fun stuff behind the scenes, just getting ready and just stick with the wrestlers. And then, as I'm going through my film, I come across this reel I forgot all about. When we were shooting the wrestling movie, I was working as a professional assistant cameraman in Detroit, worked on a lot of commercials. And one of the commercials I worked on a lot was the ones for WIRF with Dick DeBruiser.
Right, yeah.
And I came across a reel I have that's, color Super 8 sound of us behind the scenes shooting, with Dick DeBruiser on this commercial.
Wow. That's amazing.
It is. As a matter of fact, I'm going to send you a clip. I'm going to put a little piece that was on the back end of me and the Bruiser. That's hysterical.
Okay. I mean, at that time, you didn't see inside the business. These guys did not, they didn't break kayfabe. They didn't let their characters down. So this is, virtually this stuff you have is virtually non-existent otherwise because they didn't allow that to be seen.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Unfortunately, one of the best little scenes we have, I'm missing the back end of the footage, but I do have the soundtrack for it. But there's a scene where Ox Baker is all pissed off about losing the fight, and they're losing a match. And there's a scene with Ed Creechman and Abdullah Farouk, and they're arguing back and forth, and it gets heated and heated, more heated. And at the end of the scene, they're throwing stuff, they're yelling at each other. What happens is the minute they yell cut, they start cracking up, and they're rolling on the floor. And it's the first time I really seen we even filmed or saw them break character.
Yeah.
So that was a funny moment. And I wish I had all the footage to it, but I don't. I do, like I said, I do the sound.
Yeah.
They were all professional. They'd come in, do their job, do what they needed to do, and the good part was at the end of every match, or not every match, but at the end of every show, all the wrestlers would hang out at the Pontchartrain, which is a fancy hotel and the bar at the top of the Pontchartrain.
Yeah.
So it was fun at the end of the day that, when we were filming, to be able to actually kick back and hang with the wrestlers And you see some of that in the film. The stuff with Terry and Dory Funk that was shot at the Pontchartrain.
Right. Yeah.
I wish we would have had. We were also there with Andre the Giant, which I wish I would have had footage of.
Yeah.
It was kind of fun, but he was great to work with, Andre. The first time we worked with him, or the first time we were the first ones to ever really put him on film.
Right.
He didn't speak any English, so we probably spent an hour just driving around in the Jeep, having him go through his lines and having him enunciate everything.
Yeah.
Which was pretty funny. But he couldn't have been a nicer guy. Everybody from wrestlers to fans just loved Andre. He was really just a special person.
Yeah.
And it was just great. I wish we had more footage of him. And I do have some more behind-the-scenes footage of him. Matter of fact, I have behind-the-scenes footage of all the wrestlers, which, I think when I do finish it, it'll be something really special.
Yeah.
And I'll keep you posted on how it's going and send you little clips.
Sure. Sounds great.
As I find them.
Yeah. And
yeah, I'm hoping go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, when you were filming this, I mean, you use a kind of for at least as far as wrestling goes, a lot of kind of groundbreaking camera work that really wasn't being ever used in wrestling. I mean, there was, cameramen in the ring at times. And I believe, did you not film a scene with a kind of a camera on track around the ring and all these things that had never really been done in association with wrestling? Is this just from some of your previous experience, and just trying to bring what you've done on movies and other things and to get the shots you wanted for this?
Well, exactly. I wanted to really up the production value. And the very first thing we did is I got in the ring with the wrestlers. I just got down in there with them. And I think there's a preview that's up on Vissimo. Mm-hmm. If you go to eBay where I'm selling the disc, and you go to one of the sites, there's a link to the preview, and it starts off with me in the ring. Someone had shot some video that I was able to use. You can see me in there with the Sheik. But and the other thing what we wanted to do is bring up the production values. We're making a movie. We want to make it look, as good and as polished as we could. And also, we're shooting in 16 millimeter. And in 16 millimeter, cameras are a lot smaller than 35, so you could be a lot more mobile and really get in close and tight. So when we got to Heather Feather, what was interesting about Heather Feather, the first time we met her, she was very sweet. And we talked about what we were going to do, and we're going to cover a match. And they go, hey, you guys should have been here last week. Didn't anybody tell you? Yeah, she just wrestled a bear. I go, you guys are kidding, right? So from that point on, we made sure we knew what they were doing every week.
Yeah.
But as we followed her progression, as she went to, finally wrestle a man, at that point, for that big match, we brought a dolly in with dolly track. And completed a 360-degree circle around the ring, and really, it was just something different to a match. We really tried to make each match different, a little stylistic, the best way we could. We couldn't always do it, but like when you see the match with the little guys wrestling, towards the end of the movie, we shot that MOS and then used voiceover. Both Don and I, we had, before we made Ringside, we just finished a low-budget horror film called The Demon Lover. We all had been making movies since we were kids. We actually knew what we were doing. At that time, even though we were still kids, we had been making movies for quite a few years.
Yeah.
Together, along with some other friends of ours. And we were all movie fanatics. And, of course, I moved out to Hollywood and have a career as a director of photography. So it was just, it was a chance for us to really use our skill set and show off what we could do. Even though the movie at times I look at and say, oh my God, that's the worst thing I've ever done. It's only because it was so low budget.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I'd get as an assistant cameraman, I'd have a camera package over the weekend. And I'd go, hey guys, before I bring this out, before I use it on Monday, hey, let's use it to shoot a match, on Saturday or whatever. Mm-hmm. And plus, I also owned some of my camera equipment, so we were able to shoot multiple cameras, which really helped. We tried to make it. I'm glad to hear that you talked about the camera work. I'm glad that that you recognize that.
Yeah, well,
that's what we were trying to do.
Yeah, it set it apart from. It looked different than like a wrestling program on TV. It had that different feel, like you said. It gave it more of that movie feel. So yeah, it was definitely noticeable. And we talked about how, it came out in video in 85 and the concept had kind of changed, and it centered around this Stop the Sheik campaign. And, we talked about some of the guys. There was this series of, Dusty Rhodes and Andre and Bobo Brazil and the Funks who all were trying to stop the Sheik. And one of the key people in all this is Dr. Sonya Freedman. Did you have any part in getting her involved in this, or was this the later footage that was shot in the 80s?
Well, the thing about Sonya is kind of interesting. The reason she's in there is actually because of my relationship with her.
Okay.
I had been I just finished working on a project over at ABC with Sonya, and we were on the road. Believe it or not, and this was back in the 70s. We were invited to a Klan rally.
Oh man! Huh.
So ABC wanted to do a little special about this, and we spent the weekend with doing a story about a pedophile and the Ku Klux Klan. So it was pretty intense, and we were pretty well bonded by then from that experience.
Sure.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. So I had become friends with Sonya and told her about the movie and asked her if she wanted to be in it because I thought her perspective would offer something really interesting to it. Plus, we got a name in the movie, and she was local. So she was happy to be, not only was she happy to be in the movie, she invested in the movie.
Okay.
And fortunately, we were able to give her her money back. There were a few investors Don actually paid back. I believe she got her money back.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sonya was a real asset. I really liked her. She's really a sweet person, and it was really nice of her to be part of that.
Yeah, and like you said, she was doing some of these exposés on TV as this TV psychologist guy. So was there kind of that hopes, too, that it would, because you were kind of going, I think at this stage, kind of going for that documentary feel. Was there hope that maybe it would give it a little more of that credibility, having her involved?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly why we wanted her in there. Plus, I thought she added something to the movie. It gave it a different perspective and a different parallel. And
yeah, right.
For what it was, yeah.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you real quick, because we talked about Sheik and his family. And let me ask you about the Sheik's son, Captain Ed George, because he's kind of in the scope of things over time, kind of become this polarizing figure for a lot of people. What was he like to work with? And being, the Sheik's son, I mean, was there any difficulties? Was he just like any of the other boys?
Just the opposite. He was a puppy dog. We liked him a lot, and he liked us, and we liked his family. We hung out with him. I mean, no, he couldn't have been nicer. It couldn't have been more helpful for us. We really appreciated his participation, and I got nothing. When Ed does his interview, and he talks about kicking the dog and all that, that was all impromptu, but it was just cracking us up because that was not Ed.
Yeah,
I think a lot of it had to do with his dad. And he didn't want to let his dad down.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, just put a little backstory on that. But no, super nice guy.
Yeah.
All right, Ed was, good guy. Got nothing. All my experiences with him were very positive.
Yeah, and the great, I think to me, one of the great things about the film is that if you look at it, especially from now, if you look back on it, despite this, even if you don't worry about the story or any of that kind of stuff, historically, the movie is just tremendous. I mean, not only did we talk about some of the camera stuff you were doing, and there's Heather Feather doing the intergender match, which was unheard of at that time, and some of these other things, and seeing some of the talent that was there. But just, I mean, the footage you have that's in this is, I mean, you don't see footage like this. I mean, from the way you were shooting it and everything else, there's just, the only footage from that time is, the occasional TV show here and there. And so even, I think historically, from that documentation, which you were kind of going for, you said, but it's just tremendous for seeing that footage. Do you feel that as you look back on it now of how cool it was to kind of get this snippet of time in wrestling in Detroit at that time and what it was like?
Absolutely. Yeah. I felt really lucky that we had the chance to do that. And we had a chance to meet the Sheik and all the other wrestlers and become friends with them and get to know them. It was really a special moment in time. And, we always, both Don and I always felt really, honored that we had a chance to actually do it. I mean, we grew up watching wrestling in Detroit. So to be able to, make a movie about it was just, that was a great opportunity. Yeah, I look back at that footage. I mean, every one of those wrestlers are superstars. They all have great stories, and it's I only wish that I could find the outtakes.
Yeah,
I have no idea what happened to him after Don passed. So I inherited a lot of footage and very little of it was the stuff that we used to make the movie. That being said, I remember when we looked at the movie, the ratio of film that we shot to film that we used was almost 3-to-1, which is pretty much unheard of. That means we used almost everything we shot. So there wasn't a lot of outtakes, but there were outtakes. And I do have some of that I'm going to put in the behind the scenes.
Right.
Yeah, what I'm hoping to do is in the next year put together, like I said, a behind the scenes, but I'll keep you posted on how that's going.
Sure. Did you ever in a million years think that, 40 years later almost, that you'd be revisiting this film and working and doing work on it and going through this footage now? I mean, like you said, when it came out in 85 or whenever it was, you had almost, kind of forgotten about it, hadn't even thought about it. And here we are almost 40 years later, and now you're revisiting it all over again. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. I really didn't think, that it would be that relevant now. Almost more relevant now than back then.
Sure, it is.
But back then, wrestling was still happening. But yeah, no, I doesn't surprise me, but I never would have thought that. Yeah, I'd be here on the phone talking to you about the wrestling movie in 2020.
Yeah,
and not in a million years. Yeah.
And you spoke earlier that you're selling it. You have it up on eBay, and you also have the soundtrack. So the soundtrack is pretty cool. And so how did the music and the soundtrack for this movie come about? Now the music, unfortunately, I had nothing to do with, but I do know a little bit about the backstory. Not a lot. Okay. Bob Finnegan was a musician and had a band that he played with, and Don was also very heavily in the music and produced a lot of music. So it makes sense that they would put together the soundtrack and produce, great songs and put it all together. Yeah. Which they did. Yeah, with the music, I really had very little to do with, but it didn't surprise me with what they did. And I love the main title, I Like to Hurt People theme. Yeah. It's just great. Yeah, it is. So when I showed the film at the screening in Detroit at the Free Press Film Festival, and the Q&A afterwards, I got a lot of requests about the music. So I thought, well, why not? I have the tracks. Let's see what I could do. Yeah. And I found all the wrestling music I could. The Ballad of Bobo Brazil is kind of cool. That's not on the wrestling movie. Yep. That's not used in the wrestling movie, but it was a record that Bobo Brazil, put out. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to enhance it. I thought, well, okay, I think I forget how many tracks there are, but I wanted to just fill it up a little more with, not only music, but to have little snippets from the movie, some like famous little quotes and moments. Sure. So I was pretty happy with the way it came out. Yeah. Tell people they can, like I said, they can get the movie, the soundtrack, and all that. You said you have it up on eBay. All up on eBay. If you go to eBay way to find and put in I Like to Hurt People, you'll see my DVD. Mm-hmm. It's under Bryan FX. That's my eBay name. Okay. I also work as a visual effects supervisor. So, sure. Yeah, if you go on to eBay, you can buy that's the only place you can buy the soundtrack. Right. And you can buy also the DVD, and you can buy them together. Yep. Yeah, I'm like I said, I was really happy with this. I got a lot of good feedback on it, so that was nice. Yeah. And you also have a page up on Facebook, correct? That where you put a lot of absolutely still shots and pictures and different things up on there pretty regularly, so they can look up the movie there too. Yeah, I started the Facebook page about a year ago, and I'm constantly finding stills and new pictures to add. And encourage people to go on and look, and if they want to add something, to feel free to do that. Yeah. But I want to try and keep it as interesting as I can. Sure. Once I get this footage back with the Bruiser on it, I'll probably put some of that on there. Yeah. It's just pretty cool stuff. And it's funny, as I dig through my own archives, I come across pictures or little things from the movie that I'd forgotten about. So I'm constantly looking at things to post up on that Facebook page. Sure. Yeah. And I'll make sure here, wherever everybody's listening to this show, there's always show notes they can click on when they bring it up the podcast, and I'll make sure there's a link there to both the eBay. That'd be great. The eBay and the Facebook page. So if anybody wants to go out, and I highly advise you to do that, all you got to do is look at the show notes. There'll be an easy link there to get you to that. So, Bryan, thank you for coming on and talking about this, and we'll have to do it again. Like I said, as you get further along into this and get your film back, your footage back, and work on the behind the scenes stuff, and we'll have you on again and talk about that and get some updates on that. It's so cool. It's so fascinating to me. Like I said, I love the movie anyway, but to know that there's some of this other stuff and that you kind of had this side project related to it going, it's pretty cool, especially, being from the Midwest and this kind of being my thing. It's very cool. But thanks for coming on. and talking to us. And like I said, we'll definitely do some updates over the next however long while you're working on this stuff. So
Absolutely, Dave.
if you are looking for the best books, DVDs, and posters on classic wrestling nostalgia, then you want to visit crowbarpress.com. There are literally dozens of titles there, including biographies of the likes of Bruiser Brody, Ole Anderson, Ivan Koloff, and of course, Dick the Bruiser, as we've spoke about here on the Dave Dynasty Show. You want to visit crowbarpress.com for all of your classic wrestling nostalgia needs. Again, that is crowbarpress.com. All right, and thank you again for joining us today and listening to the special I Like to Hurt People episode. This is something we've been working on for a long time. Glad I finally got it done. Special thanks to Joey and Bryan for coming on and doing these interviews. Hopefully you enjoyed them. Hopefully it gave you some insight. Now go out, order the movie, order the DVD, and order the soundtrack from Bryan, and then watch it. All right, watch it and watch it a lot. It's very, very cool. I love the movie. The soundtrack's cool. I'm probably going to go watch it now. This has got me so pumped. I'm going to go watch it again. So anyway, however you listen to us, make sure you subscribe. And if you listen to us on iTunes, rate and review us. Make sure you share this episode and all the episodes on social media. Quick click, and it helps us network, helps get the word out there, and we do appreciate that. Again, as stated earlier, visit DaveDynasty.com. All of our social media links are there and everything else. Keep on supporting the show, keeping it free for you. Hopefully, here in the next couple of weeks, we'll see some of you guys in Portland, Indiana for DCCW on May 11th, and on June 8th and 9th in Milwaukee for Crusher Fest. And next week, on this day, our daily history snippets every morning will be back, I promise. I'm going to start doing the research on it to prep the prep work for it. They will be back next week. And we also have another great episode of the Dave Dynasty Show. We've already got several great interviews in the books. And we will unveil those on our social media very soon. But until then, whatever you do and wherever you are, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
It's a three-ring circus, a Roman arena. The men in the ring are gladiators, and the crowd, the common folk, are getting their chance. Their chance to act against authority figures that they cannot be aggressive towards in their own real lives. Their chance to beat the men around that they feel have been beating them.
Stretch it now. Come on. It's a natural fact. Gotta look to attack and see your face.
Wrestling is an action sport, body contact, and regardless of what the opinion of the general public is supposed to be, violence. And wrestling gives you all three. A lot of violence, a lot of body contact, and of course a lot of action.
I am not your manager. Tonight, I am going to be in this corner of the real man, the real champion. I'm nervous. I'm crazy now.
Well,
the champion is on my
to hurt people. I like to hurt people. I like to hurt them good. Hurt.
There's no chance of the fans getting hurt unless they become involved with the wrestlers. My advice to wrestling fans, stay out of the way.
Hey, what's the good? I paid for blood.
A whole family can do together, you know? There's so much junk on TV, and this is live entertainment. It's really something that the whole family is into. There's so much.
Wow, what about this has been this far from over?
What are the repercussions of this kind of violence? What is the repercussion of viewing this kind of scene over and over again?
I can't take it out right here at my home. I don't like this dog that's sitting next to me. Kathy loves the dog, but I don't like the dog. I like the dog.
You will get your face broken. You will get your eyes torn out. You will see them to pieces. Tonight, tonight.
Now, let me tell you a few things, Creechman and ladies and gentlemen. George Washington never quit. Abraham Lincoln never quit. General Dwight Eisenhower never quit. And the Romans never quit.
Whoever wrestled the sheep, maybe they have their hands full.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you feel, as I do, I'm completely overtaken by this whole ugly scene.
Who's going to win the bout, Butch?
I've been out to that sheep for so long, all I can think of is to break his neck.
The sheep's crazy. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Tonight! I'm gonna break his wrist.
The most dangerous wrestler I've ever officiated. Well, there's no question at all. It's got to be the Sheik.
He is the most vicious and best wrestler in the wrestling world. Everybody knows that the Noble Sheik is even a scientific wrestler, and he is one of the best. As far as I'm concerned, this is why I manage him.
The Sheik, the Noble Sheik will be there to meet any of you men that have guts enough to accept the challenge.
The men in the ring, they're gladiators, and the people around are just as they were in the times of Rome, watching the brute force of one human being against another.